I didn't stop talking to my family because of some petty fight. I stopped because I finally uncovered the truth, that they never wanted me to succeed, and when I did, they tried to destroy me for it. If you had asked me 5 years ago, I would have told you my family was everything to me. I grew up in a modest suburban house in Portland, Oregon, with a backyard just big enough for summer barbecues and a front porch where my dad liked to read the newspaper. On the outside, we looked like the picture of stability. Two parents who had been married for over 20 years, a younger brother who excelled in sports, and me, the bookish older daughter with a decent GPA and a dream of going to art school. Our house was noisy in a comforting way. My mom, Patricia, loved filling the kitchen with the smell of cinnamon rolls on Sunday mornings. My dad, Martin, would crack dry jokes that made my brother, Evan, roll his eyes but secretly laugh when no one was looking. On birthdays, we decorated the living room with crepe paper and balloons. On Christmas mornings, Dad always pretended to forget which present was his, only to feign surprise when he unwrapped new socks. If there was tension, it was buried beneath those little rituals. If there were cracks, they were painted over with smiles and "we're fine" reassurances. Growing up, I believed them. I believed my parents were proud of me, even though they praised Evan's achievements more often. He was the athlete, varsity soccer by sophomore year, trophies lined up like soldiers on his dresser. At dinner, Mom would gush about his goals and practices. When it came to me, the conversation was quieter. "How are your drawings going?" asked in the same tone one might use for a hobby. I told myself it didn't matter. I loved art, even if no one else in the family seemed to. When they brushed it aside, I buried myself deeper in sketchbooks, doodling late into the night. But slowly, little things chipped away at the illusion. Like the time I showed Dad my acceptance letter to the summer art program in Seattle. His eyes flicked across the page, and instead of congratulating me, he muttered, "How much does it cost?" "Not much," I lied, though it was more than I could afford. He sighed, set the letter down, and went back to his newspaper. "You should think about something practical. Art doesn't pay the bills." I laughed it off, pretending his words didn't sting, but they did. Or the time Mom forgot to pick me up from an exhibition I'd worked on for months. I stood in the rain outside the community center, clutching my portfolio case, as car after car drove past. When she finally arrived an hour later, she shrugged. "Sorry, I lost track of time. You know how busy I am with Evan's soccer booster meetings." I told myself she didn't mean it, that it wasn't personal. But deep down, I felt the first tug of something heavier, invisibility. At family gatherings, relatives would gush over Evan. "He's going to get a scholarship, just you wait." Then they'd turn to me with polite smiles. "And what about you? Still drawing?" I smiled back, nodding, pretending their words didn't sound like dismissal. Still, I clung to the belief that my family loved me, even if they didn't understand me. I told myself it was normal, that every family had favorites, that what mattered was that we were together. And in those rare moments when Mom hugged me tightly, or Dad slipped me gas money, or Evan asked me to proofread his essays, I convinced myself everything was fine. False stability. That's what it was. A fragile structure built on rituals and denial, one gust of truth away from collapsing. At the time, though, I didn't know that. I thought I was safe. I thought family was forever. I didn't realize that the very people I trusted most were already planting the seeds that would one day push me to cut them off completely. The first Rayall warning bell didn't come as a scream. It came as a whisper, so subtle I almost ignored it. It happened during my senior year of high school. College applications were in full swing, and for once, I felt like maybe I had something worth sharing at the dinner table. I had poured my heart into a portfolio for the Pacific Northwest School of Design, a program that, if I got in, could change everything. The night I submitted my application, I rushed downstairs, my laptop still open to the confirmation page. "I did it," I said, breathless. "I applied. They'll review my portfolio next month." Mom looked up from chopping vegetables, her knife mid-air. "That's nice, honey." Dad barely glanced up from his phone. "How much does that place cost again?" I opened my mouth to answer, but Evan cut in, grinning as he tossed a soccer ball from hand to hand. "Guess what, Dad? Coach says I'm being scouted for state." And just like that, the spotlight shifted. Mom clapped her hands. "Oh, Evan, that's incredible. We'll have to start looking into scholarships." Dad finally put down his phone. "Proud of you, son. You've worked hard." I stood there, laptop in hand, invisible again. I told myself it didn't matter, but that night, alone in my room, I cried quietly into my pillow. It wasn't just that they overlooked me. It was the realization that maybe they wanted to. The next week, the warning bell grew louder. I overheard Mom on the phone with Aunt Diane. She thought I was upstairs, but I was in the hallway, sketching. "She's wasting her time with that art stuff," Mom sighed. "Honestly, I don't know what she's thinking. We can't support that. Not when Evan has a real SH*T at a scholarship. We have to focus our energy where it matters." I froze. Where it matters. It wasn't just about Evan being the favorite anymore. It was about them actively deciding I wasn't worth investing in. I should have confronted her then, but I didn't. I went back to my room, my sketchbook shaking in my hands, and told myself I must have misunderstood. But the confirmation came a month later. I got an email from the design school. My portfolio had made it to the final round. They wanted me to come in for an in-person interview. My heart soared. This was it, the moment I could finally prove myself. I ran downstairs to tell my parents. They were in the living room, sorting through bills. "They want to interview me," I said, holding up my phone. "Next Saturday. This is huge, you guys." Mom frowned. "Next Saturday? That's Evan's state qualifying match." My excitement faltered. It's just one game. I'll be back in time. Dad shook his head. No. We'll all be at Evan's match. It's too important. You'll have to reschedule. My stomach dropped. Dad, I can't reschedule. This is a once-in-a-lifetime chance. They set the date. If I don't go, I'm out. Mom sighed, exasperated. Why are you being so dramatic? You can always apply again next year. Evan only gets one sh*t at this match. The words hit me like a punch. They were asking me to choose between my future and my brother's game. No, they weren't asking. They had already chosen for me. That night, I sat on my bed staring at the email. My hands trembled as I typed out a response, begging for an alternate date. The school replied politely but firmly. Interviews were fixed. Missing mine meant forfeiting my chance. I never went. Evan won his match. My parents cheered from the bleachers, their faces glowing with pride. And me. I sat there silently, watching them celebrate, the echo of the first warning bell pounding in my chest. I didn't know it yet, but that was the moment something inside me cracked. After the missed interview, things didn't just go back to normal. They got worse. It was like my parents had silently agreed that my future was expendable. From then on, any small spark of ambition I showed was quietly smothered before it could catch fire. At first, it was subtle. Whenever I mentioned college again, Dad would mutter, "We'll see," in that tone that really meant no. Mom would steer the conversation back to Evan's training schedule, his tournament stats, or his latest practice gear. I learned quickly not to bring up my dreams at the dinner table. But soon, it wasn't just silence. It became sabotage. My parents demanded I contribute more around the house, extra chores, babysitting cousins, even taking shifts at Mom's church bake sales, while Evan was always too busy with soccer. If I protested, Dad's voice would drop into that dangerous calm. Stop being selfish. This family needs you. Translation: Evan needs you. And you're replaceable. At school, I tried to escape into art club, but my parents pulled me out, saying it distracted from real responsibilities. I begged to stay. I told them it was the only thing keeping me sane. Mom rolled her eyes. You'll survive. Evan needs the car to get to practice, and that's more important. So I walked home every afternoon, watching my peers drive off to places I wasn't allowed to go. The isolation tightened. Even Evan joined in, not cruelly at first, but casually, without realizing how deep the cuts went. He'd toss me his dirty jerseys after games and say, "Thanks for being the built-in maid." If I hesitated, he'd laugh. "Relax. You're not doing anything important anyway." At family gatherings, the jokes grew sharper. My uncles would clap Evan on the back, bragging about his bright future. Then they'd glance at me and smirk. Still doodling? Each word was a reminder. I didn't belong in my own family's narrative. I was the background character in the story of Evan's greatness. But the worst came during my senior spring, when my guidance counselor pulled me aside. "Ellie," she said gently, "why haven't you submitted your FAFSA? You told me you wanted to apply to community college at least." I blinked at her. "I did. Weeks ago." She frowned, tapping her keyboard. "I don't see anything on file. Did you maybe forget to mail it?" My stomach twisted. That night, I tore through my desk drawers, searching for the envelope I knew I'd sealed. Gone. I checked again. Gone. When I asked Mom, she barely looked up from folding laundry. "Oh, that paperwork. We decided not to send it. You're not ready for college." The air left my lungs. "You decided. That wasn't your choice to make." Dad's voice thundered from the next room. "Watch your tone. You think money grows on trees? We can't waste it on pipe dreams. You'll stay home, help out, and maybe think about something practical down the road." That was the moment I realized it wasn't just neglect. It was control. They weren't just indifferent to my future, they were actively preventing it. I tried to fight back in small ways. I picked up extra shifts at the cafe where I worked weekends, stashing tips in an old shoebox under my bed. I whispered about scholarships with my teachers, using the library computers when I could. But my parents caught on. One night, I came home to find the shoebox gone. Dad stood in the kitchen, holding the crumpled bills in his fist. "Where did this come from?" "My job," I said, my voice shaking. He dropped the money on the counter. "From now on, every dollar you earn goes into the family fund. You live here, you contribute." I wanted to scream, I'm trying to escape, but the words stuck in my throat. Because I already knew the answer, escape wasn't allowed. The walls of our house felt smaller every day. My friends drifted away, some because my parents refused to let me go out, others because I was too ashamed to admit why I never showed up. I became a ghost, moving from bedroom to kitchen to classroom, my life shrinking with every passing month. And through it all, Evan thrived. His picture appeared in the local paper after a big win, Mom clipping the article and taping it proudly to the fridge. Dad drove him to out-of-town tournaments, beaming from the stands. When people asked about their kids, they said, "Evan's the star athlete." And me. I was the one they didn't mention. But I noticed something in their eyes whenever they dismissed me. Fear. Not fear of me failing, but fear of me succeeding without their permission. That realization was the seed of what came next. The pressure had pushed me to the edge. The isolation had nearly broken me. But soon I'd stumble on the truth that explained everything. Why they needed to keep me small, why my voice was silenced, why my dreams were treated like threats. And once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. I always imagined that if I ever uncovered some dark family secret, it would come with dramatic music, voices raised, papers slammed on the table, maybe even a tearful confession. But the truth slipped into my hands quietly, like a letter slid under a door. It started with a call from the community college I had tried applying to on my own. I had managed to scrape together enough money from hidden tips to cover the application fee. I hadn't told my parents. I couldn't risk another lost form. One afternoon, while I was folding laundry, my phone buzzed. "Hello, this is admissions," a cheerful voice said. "We just wanted to confirm your withdrawal before processing." My heart froze. My what? Your withdrawal request. It came through yesterday. I didn't withdraw, I whispered. The woman hesitated. Well, we have a signed letter on file. From a Martin Callahan. My dad. I hung up, my hands trembling so violently the laundry fell to the floor. Rage boiled in my chest, but beneath it was something worse. Clarity. They weren't just ignoring me. They weren't just dismissing me. They were actively erasing me. I needed proof. That night, while my parents slept, I crept into Dad's office. The door creaked like it was betraying me, but I pressed forward, heart pounding. His desk drawers were locked, but I'd watched him enough times to know he kept the spare key taped under the bottom. Inside, I found a stack of envelopes, college letters addressed to me. Some were unopened. Some had been ripped open and resealed with tape. My acceptance into the summer design program. A scholarship offer from a local arts nonprofit. Even the FAFSA confirmation I thought had vanished. Every opportunity one had ever dreamed of, they had intercepted and hidden. But why? The answer came in the form of a thin manila folder. Inside were documents I didn't recognize at first, loan statements, credit card balances, overdue notices. But the names jumped out, Martin and Patricia Callahan, tens of thousands of dollars in debt. And then, at the bottom, a line that made my stomach turn, dependent income, Evan Callahan. My brother's sports career wasn't just a source of pride, it was their investment. They were banking on him to land a scholarship, maybe even go pro. Every dollar, every ounce of attention, every stolen opportunity of mine, it was all part of a strategy to funnel resources into him. I was never the priority. I was the sacrifice. The realization made me dizzy. I staggered back, clutching the folder like it might burn me. My own parents had decided my dreams were disposable so they could gamble on Evans. The next morning, I confronted Mom in the kitchen. "Why did you hide my letters?" I demanded, slamming the envelopes onto the counter. Her face drained of color. "Where did you get those?" "That doesn't matter. You stole my future from me." She didn't deny it. She just sighed, her voice tight. "We did what was best for the family. You'll understand one day." "No," I snapped, my voice breaking. "I understand now. You never believed in me. You never even gave me a chance." Dad stormed in, his face red. "That's enough. You live under our roof. You follow our rules. If you can't accept that, then you don't belong here." His words sliced deeper than he knew. Because for the first time, I realized he meant them. They didn't see me as family. They saw me as a liability. That was the moment the last of my illusions shattered. The perfect family I had clung to in my head was nothing but a facade. And behind it was a truth I could never unlearn. My parents had chosen my brother's future over my existence. And I knew then, with cold certainty, that I couldn't stay in that house much longer. The night I uncovered the letters and loan statements, I barely slept. My body buzzed with adrenaline, and my mind ran circles around one truth. If I didn't act soon, I'd be trapped forever. My parents had built a cage for me, disguised as home, and I'd been blind enough to walk into it. Now I had to claw my way out. But I couldn't do it openly. Not yet. They held all the cards. Money, housing, authority. If I pushed too hard, they'd cut me off completely before I had the chance to stand on my own. I needed a plan. The first step was gathering evidence. I snuck back into Dad's office over the next few days, photographing every document I could find. Letters, debt statements, scholarship offers they'd hidden. I created a secret folder on a flash drive I wore around my neck, disguised as a cheap keychain. It became my lifeline. Next, I reached out to Eliza. Quietly, carefully. I started with Mrs. Patel, my art teacher. She'd always been the one adult who took my work seriously. I lingered after class one afternoon, waiting until the last student left. "Can I ask you something?" I whispered. Her eyes softened. "Of course." I pulled out the flash drive, plugging it into her computer. The screen filled with images. My acceptance letters, the withdrawn FAFSA, the debts. She scrolled slowly, her lips tightening. "Oh, Ellie," she murmured. This is wrong." "I don't know what to do," I admitted, my throat thick. "They're destroying every chance I have." Mrs. Patel leaned closer. "You're 18 in 2 months. Once you're legally an adult, you can apply again, on your own, without their interference. But until then, you have to be careful." Her words gave me a flicker of hope. I wasn't powerless. Not completely. With her guidance, I opened a new bank account in secret. I funneled money into it from my cafe job, cashing tips before my parents could intercept them. I told them I was earning less, and they didn't question it. They were too distracted by Evan's upcoming regional tournament. The more they ignored me, the more freedom I found in the shadows. But playing double lives was exhausting. At home, I acted compliant, cooking dinner, folding laundry, smiling when Evan bragged about his wins. At night, I scoured scholarship websites, filling out applications in the library after closing. My one constant fear was discovery. Every time Dad walked past my room, I slammed my laptop shut, heart hammering. Every time Mom asked where I'd been, I rehearsed lies in my head before answering. Then came the close call. One evening, I was in the diner bathroom, slipping an envelope of cash into my shoe, the safest place I could think of, when the door creaked open. Evan stepped in, grinning like he'd caught me shoplifting. "What's that?" he asked, pointing to the envelope. "Nothing," I said too quickly. He narrowed his eyes. "You hiding something?" Panic clawed at my chest, but I forced myself to laugh. "Tips. I don't like keeping them in my pocket. Customers get grabby." He shrugged, apparently convinced, and left. But my hands shook so badly I nearly dropped the envelope into the toilet. That scare lit a fire under me. I doubled down, working extra shifts, filing every application I could. Mrs. Patel even connected me with a local nonprofit that helped at-risk youth apply for grants. I hated the label, but I needed the help. Meanwhile, my parents kept piling pressure on me to support the family. They made me drive Evan to practices, scrub the house before relatives visited, and even take on part of the grocery bill. I did it all with a smile, because every chore was camouflage. The more obedient I seemed, the less they suspected what I was really building, my exit. But pressure has a way of finding cracks. One night, Mom cornered me in the kitchen. "You've been awfully quiet lately," she said, folding her arms. "You're not still sulking about that silly art school, are you?" Something in me snapped. "It's not silly," I said, my voice low but steady. "And I'm not giving it up. Not for you, not for Dad, not even for Evan." Her eyes widened in shock. For a second, I thought she might slap me. But instead, she smirked. "We'll see." Her confidence chilled me. It meant she still believed she had control. But what she didn't know, what none of them knew, was that the control was slipping. Piece by piece, I was taking it back. The counterstrike had beg *N. And soon, they'd realize that the girl they thought was silent, invisible, disposable, had a voice louder than they ever imagined. By the time my 18th birthday arrived, the double life I'd been living felt like walking on a tightrope with no net. One wrong move, one slip, and everything I'd been building could collapse. But instead of fear, I felt a strange calm settle over me. I wasn't powerless anymore. I had my secret account, my applications, my evidence. For the first time, I felt like the ground beneath me belonged to me, not to them. The showdown came sooner than I expected. It was the night before Evan's regional finals, the biggest game of his high school career. The whole house buzzed with nervous energy. Mom baked cookies for the team. Dad polished his camera, ready to capture every moment of Evan's glory. I kept my head down, pretending to be part of the machine. But after dinner, Dad called me into the living room. His tone was sharp, the kind that made my stomach clench. "Sit," he ordered. I obeyed, perching on the edge of the couch. Mom hovered by the doorway, arms crossed. Evan lounged in the recliner, smirking like he already knew I was in trouble. Dad held up a thin envelope. My chest tightened. I recognized the crest immediately. It was from the State Scholarship Foundation. He tossed it onto the coffee table. "Care to explain?" My heart pounded, but I forced my face to stay neutral. "It's mine." His eyes narrowed. "How did you apply without us knowing?" "I don't need your permission," I said, my voice trembling but firm. "I'm 18 now." The room went silent. Mom's lips pressed into a thin line. "We told you, Ellie. Art isn't a future. We can't waste money on it." I leaned forward, my hands shaking. "It's my money. My work. My future. You don't get to decide anymore." Dad's face flushed crimson. He slammed his fist on the table, making the envelope jump. "As long as you live in this house, we decide everything." That was the moment the years of silence and invisibility combusted into words I'd been swallowing my whole life. "You've never supported me," I shouted, my voice cracking. "You stole my letters. You lied to me. You treated me like I was nothing just because I'm not Evan. Well, guess what? I'm done being nothing." Evan scoffed. "Drama queen." I spun toward him, rage boiling. "You knew, didn't you? That they were sacrificing me for you." He looked startled but said nothing. His silence was all the answer I needed. Mom reached for my arm, her voice icy. "You don't talk to your father that way." I pulled back. "He's not acting like a father, he's acting like a jailer." The words hung in the air, sharper than knives. For a second, no one moved. Then Dad lunged for the envelope, ripping it in half before I could stop him. I gasped, the sound tearing from my throat. Years of frustration, fear, and grief erupted all at once. I grabbed my phone, yanked the flash drive from my pocket, and held them high. "You can rip that up," I said, my voice shaking but loud. "But you can't destroy this. I have everything, every letter you hid, every debt you piled onto Evan, every lie you told. If you try to stop me again, I'll take it all to the board, to the school, to anyone who'll listen. And then everyone will know what kind of parents you really are." Their faces drained of color. For once, they didn't have an answer. The silence stretched until Evan muttered, "She's serious." I stood, my knees weak but steadying with each step. "I'm leaving. Tomorrow." Mom's voice cracked. "Where will you go? You have nothing without us." I met her eyes, and for the first time, I didn't feel small. "I have everything I need. And I'd rather have nothing than stay here one more day." I walked out before they could stop me, clutching the flash drive like a wee *P***N. Upstairs, I packed my bag in silence, the weight of years lifting with every item I folded. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, waiting for them to barge in and take it all away. But they didn't. And when the sun rose, I carried my bag out the front door, past my parents' stunned faces, past Evan's wide eyes, past the life they had built for themselves at the expense of mine. It was the end of something. But it was also the beginning. The morning I left my parents' house felt both terrifying and liberating. My entire life had been spent inside those walls, playing by rules that weren't mine, shrinking myself to fit into a family that never really wanted me as I was. As I dragged my suitcase down the cracked driveway, the air felt sharper, cleaner, like I could finally breathe without permission. I didn't know exactly where I was going, but I knew I wasn't going back. Mrs. Patel was the first person I called. She didn't hesitate. "Come stay with me until you figure things out," she said. Her guest room was small and cluttered with stacks of old canvases, but to me it felt like a palace. For the first time in years, I slept through the night without listening for footsteps outside my door. Of course, freedom came with fear. My parents tried calling, then texting. At first, the messages were furious, ungrateful, selfish. "How dare you embarrass us like this?" When I didn't respond, the tone shifted. "Come home, Ellie. Let's talk. You can't survive on your own." But I didn't cave. I filed for independent status with the help of the nonprofit Mrs. Patel connected me to. With a flash drive as proof, I showed how my parents had sabotaged my education, withheld financial aid forms, and interfered with my applications. It wasn't easy, but I was granted independence. Suddenly, I could apply for aid and scholarships under my own name, without their signatures holding me hostage. It felt like chains falling away. I enrolled in community college that fall. Not the fancy design school I had once dreamed of, but a place that gave me space to grow, to create, to begin again. I worked nights at the cafe, days in class, weekends sketching in the park. It wasn't glamorous. It was exhausting. But it was mine. Evan tried reaching out once. A half-hearted text. "You really left?" I stared at the screen for a long time before typing back. Yes. His reply never came. Maybe he was too wrapped up in his own path, or maybe he didn't know how to reconcile the sister he dismissed with the one who finally stood up. As for my parents, they stopped trying after a while. The silence between us stretched, and instead of filling it with guilt, I filled it with color, with lines, with canvases that reflected a freedom I had never known. Years later, I was accepted into a design program after all, not because of them, but in spite of them. I moved into a tiny studio apartment with peeling paint and terrible plumbing, but when I hung my first framed sketch on the wall, I felt richer than I ever had in that big, suffocating house. When people ask me why I don't talk to my family anymore, I don't give them the long version. I just say, because they never wanted me to be me. But the truth is deeper. I stopped talking to them because I learned the hardest lesson. Sometimes family isn't love. Sometimes it's control, dressed up as protection. Sometimes the people who raise you would rather break you than let you outgrow them. And once you see that truth, you can't unsee it. Walking away didn't make me weaker. It made me stronger. It made me whole. The real reason I stopped talking to my family wasn't hate. It was survival. And in surviving, I finally became myself.